So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to treat shin splints, stress fractures, etc. Obviously we can't treat a stress fracture, but we can do some things to prevent them from happening, or if you're prone to them. We can do some preventative maintenance. So regardless of whether or not it's posterior or anterior, what we're going to look at is tissue quality first. So I really like SMR, where you kind of just find a spot that hurts, use your foam roll, and once you land on a spot that is painful, hang out on that, maybe even take your opposite leg and set it on top to create some pressure, get some weight on it, and then you're just going to work that foot up and down nice and slow so that you're kind of pulling the muscle through the fascial tissue, because a lot of times we end up with adhesions where the fascial tissue, that's almost like a sheath that wraps around the muscle, actually can adhere to the muscle itself due to small micro tears and trauma in there. It creates a little bit of clotting, just like you might have like a scab or something like that. And you'll notice a lot of these will actually break up as you're working on them. A little bit of rocking back and forth and lifting the foot up and down. And that's all it takes to create something called autonomic inhibition. Basically the muscle's turning off, just to keep it as simple as possible. You've got a microspasm in there, the muscle's staying contracted. Once we do that, it just turns itself off and becomes soft. One of the other things I do for shin splints is I will take the edge of my tibia here, and I'm going to position this on the foam roll, and I'll actually roll my tibia, the actual bone, right up against the edge of that tibia. And you can also do it for the posterior. It's a little trickier, but you can get on top of it and just really grind that bone into the foam roll. That kind of helps with almost literally peeling the muscle off of the bone. And you'll notice as you do it more and more often that obviously the first time you do it is going to really hurt. The more often you do it, the less painful it is. Other things that you can work with, you can use things like the stick. It's literally what's called. It's called the stick. And you can kind of do a little bit of your own manual work digging in there. You can always use a lacrosse ball. Crossballs, softballs, things like that are great for getting in there. Unfortunately, the lacrosse ball does not work well for sliding down because obviously the texture of it in your skin. So what you can use is you can use massage balls. This one's called a mini massage roller, and it actually spins. And that's an easy way that you can take this and dig in. If you want to get in real nice and close so you can actually see what I'm doing here. You get enough pressure in here and you can actually see that it's actually pressing that muscle down and exposing the edge of my tibia here. So we're actually driving along the edge of the bone to your anterior tibialis, runs up through here, and you're able to kind of get in really nice and deep, hit those small muscles that sit right behind the bone. Other things you can work with, this one's called a knuckleballer. This one is a smaller surface area, so it lets you really pinpoint it. You can just drive this right along the edge of that bone there. This will be very, very painful the first few times you do it, but the more often you do it, the less pain. Same thing for the posterior side. You can actually drive right along the bone, just guiding it the whole way down. You can even come back up, and if you find a knot or something like that, you can just kind of knead it a little bit till it kind of releases. It's kind of interesting when you use your hand. Sometimes when you use your hand, and I'll get to that in a moment, you actually feel like a bubble underneath. And the more times you go over that bubble, the smaller it gets, and sometimes it'll even disappear while you're working on it. The other thing I throw people's way, you can use an ace bandage, you can use a bike tire, whatever you want. You can actually take a bike tire and cut it so it's flat and laid open. Or what you can do is you can take a latex wrap and pull this thing really tight. The tighter the better, and create compression. And we often do this for joints. This works really well for tendinitis, but I found on my own, messing with my shin splints that I had been suffering when I got up to around 60 miles of running per week, was that using this on my leg, and as you can tell I'm kind of straining a little bit because I'm really putting as much pressure on this thing as I can. Using this on my leg actually helped to relieve my stress fracture propensity, because I was prone to them, got rid of that, and also got rid of my shin splints. So once you got this thing nice and tight, I don't even care if you tie it off or not, you can just hold on to it, keeping the tension on it. Working your foot back and forth like this through here, you'll notice right away it's very, very painful. One, because of the pressure, and two, because now that muscle's kind of trapped in there and you're sliding it back and forth. That's really going to break up that fascial tissue anywhere it might have adhesions, at least superficially, and meaning on the surface, the surface of the fascial tissue to the muscle. Not that you can't have adhesions within the muscle as well, but we'll work on those using things like the massage roller or the lacrosse ball, or you can manually get in with your hands. In any case, this is a great tool to use here. You can use even an ace bandage, though. Believe me, I've used ace bandages many, many times. Those work just as well. The other thing you can do, and I actually don't think I have any with me. Kinesio tape. So KT tape, what you can do is you can anchor it to the bottom of your foot here, and you run it up alongside this bone and end it here. So your anchor starts here, though. Don't anchor it up high and try to pull it down. Anchor it at the foot and then trace it along the edge of your tibia. And you can also do it for the posterior. You can anchor it to your foot and then run it up the length of your tibia here, and that will support it. So moving on from all these gadgets and stuff like that, something anyone can do. All you need is either some massage oil. This one right here is arnica massage oil. You can use that. You can use this here is actually magnesium oil. It's not really oil at all, though. It's really just magnesium suspended in water. Traumil. This is an ointment. It comes in a gel or a cream. You can even use like body lotion. This one here is just a simple CoQ10 cocoa butter lotion that you can use for dry skin or whatever. This will do the trick. You can even use water. So, or coconut oil. You can certainly use even cooking oil. There's no reason you can't put coconut oil or olive oil on your skin. Anything that will allow you to slide, because what we're trying to do is going to get in here. But if my skin's dry, my hand doesn't really slide very well along the back of my tibia. So I'm going to use a little bit of this right here. And so this guy here is a Ayurvedic massage oil. And so I'm just going to spread it across my tibia here, the length of my tibia. So now that's on there, my thumb will slide really nice and easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb, I'm going to dig in really nice and deep, and I'm going to slide it along the back of my tibia here. And this is why you need the oil, because if you get enough pressure, your hand's not going to want to slide. And I'm just going to trace down the length of my tibia. And I feel a couple little bubbles in there. So right here, there's a good one. I'm just going to kind of work on it a little bit, let it kind of break up under my finger. Sometimes it helps to actually back up a little bit. Once in a while you start working on it and you won't feel it anymore. So then if you back up a little bit and come back to it again, you'll feel it kind of coming back. Eventually they'll go away if you keep doing this long enough, but it's not like we have all the time in the world. Sometimes you're doing this just very quickly before you go to bed or something. So if you can break it up and be consistent about doing this every day, you'll notice that within a couple days and certainly within weeks, you won't have any more of these bubbles or adhesions back here. So now that we're getting this kind of going and we're pressing down the tibia, you can really see the bone if you want to come in close. You can really see how there's the edge of my bone there. My thumb is literally behind the bone and I'm driving down. So the next trick to this is now what I'm going to do is, as I have my foot relaxed here, I'm actually going to try to raise my foot slowly at the same time as I drive my thumb down, so that by the time I'm at the bottom, my foot is completely in flexion here, and then I'm going to go back to extension, and I'm going to drive down this bone again and just try to pace it so that you're coming up at a steady rate, so that when you're halfway down your tibia, your foot's halfway up. As you reach the end of this, the foot is reaching the end of its range of motion, and there you are, kind of working both directions at once. So we're kind of just driving that muscle as we pull it a little bit tighter because the foot is now going into flexion. So that's a really easy thing to do as far as the massage point. The other thing you can do is a little bit of like cross tissue here. You can kind of work away from it. So you're going to take your thumb and drive down the bone. So if you can see this here, my thumb is literally pushing into the point where you can see the back of my tibia there. I'm flush up against the bone, and I'm going to push away from it. And I'm just going to keep doing this down the whole length of my tibia, just pushing the thumb in and pushing away from it. Pushing it in and pushing away. Just working down the whole length of this muscle here. And then the last trick I have for you, and this is something I kind of invented on my own just based off of multiple modalities. It's kind of like a structural integration meets ART meets like yoga deep breathing thing. What I have people do is if there's a real trouble spot, so let's say right here, I don't have one, but let's just say this guy right here is awful. This is right about the insertion point of the soleus. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to control my breathing, and exhaling helps us to relax. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use both hands, and I'm going to take a deep breath, and as I exhale I'm going to press this foot up into flexion, and at the same time I'm going to drive this thumb down on the muscle so that I'm getting that good manual therapy at the same time. So here we go. Deep breath. Same thing. And a lot of people don't really think about the breathing aspect of it, but it's amazing how many of my athletes that I work on, and as soon as we incorporate the breathing into it, I have them exhale as we work a joint or we do some type of ART. That exhale seems to really help people's muscles release simultaneously while we're doing our manual therapy. So really, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, maybe even a little bit like groovy. You got all those yoga people out there, the massage therapists that believe in like chakras and all these things like that. But there definitely is a relaxation that your body has whenever you exhale, which is obviously why a lot of times when we lift heavy things, we actually hold our breath, we tense up, and we valsalva. But that exhale definitely has a effect on your nervous system to allow that muscle to relax. So just be consistent with it. It's not like it's a vigorous exhale. I'm not blowing out hard like it's just a nice steady exhale. I'm sure you can probably hear me. You just let it go slowly. As you drive across the muscle, and you'll notice that combining those therapies together is very, very effective. And you can do the same thing if they happen to be posterior instead. Everything that I just did on the anterior side, you could just mimic it exactly the same way on the posterior side. The only change I might give you is taking your opposite hand and using your fingertips instead of using your thumb, because it's very hard to generate enough pressure from this angle with your thumb. Not that you can't, you certainly can, but it's easier if you use your fingers. And you might even stack your fingers together so you can get more pressure. You'll notice that actually, if you could get in close enough, I'm not asking you to, but if you could get in close enough, what you'd see is actually that my other fingertips aren't really even pressing. I'm just pressing my fingertips into my ring finger so that I have the support of the pressure behind it. But my middle finger and my index finger are not actually even making contact with the skin. They're just stacked up so I can get enough pressure behind my ring finger to drive it across the bone. Those are your options as far as things you can do for yourself. They're pretty simple. Make sure you get a good stretch going too after you run. If you're prone to shin splints, if you're prone to stress fractures, things like that. Obviously, some stretching and some soft tissue work post-run can be very beneficial. And I like to always hit this before I go to bed. I just think that breaking up any damaged tissue and things like that before I go to bed kind of sets the tissue up to recover, because obviously sleep is how we recover anyways. So breaking those things up before I go to sleep, I believe that it cleans things out. That way my body is able to do its natural processes while I'm sleeping and repair itself. And that wraps it up. Thanks.